Lloydette is a registered nurse. She has been an infusion clinical nurse specialist and several other things. And she's now working as a nutrition liaison for Thrive RX. So, it's all yours and congratulations. I think so, yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lloydette, and actually, I'm excited to be able to present at Oley. This is the first time I've been at one of the conferences. So, yes, speaking loud is usually not my issue. But anyway, I'm excited to be here, and I'm the saying that Lori Rain was perfect for me to follow because kind of how we ended up doing this abstract was last year. Coming on to the team of Thrive RX, a lot of our consumers, especially this summertime, we get asked the question about swimming or not to swim. And so it really depends on the program that they're with their medical team, if they allow that or not. So this was kind of how this all came about. So I'm going to change this. So. Okay, so the objectives, what we were really looking for was the quality of life for the home parental nutrition patients and the importance of swimming. And even looking out the room, I got a couple of consumers, it's not a big deal. And other ones, it really is, because it affects that quality family time if everybody else is swimming and the person with the home parental nutrition can't. So again, and a lot of times it's age dependent. So pediatric versus young adult versus older adult who is wanting to swim. So we wanted to look at the correlation between swimming and the incident of line infections. That's such a huge issue, keeping that line in and not putting it at risk. So we wanted to take a look at that. And so what we ended up doing was doing a electronic survey for the HPN consumers about swimming with the CVC. So, and this was published, I can look so I can't read it that far, from Editorial and Clinical Nutrition, is looking at the factors that affect quality of life when it comes to home parental nutrition. And so physical, medical, sleeping, bathroom timing, energy level, risk infection, liver dysfunction, losing access, and then on the other realm, the psychosocial, traveling, social life, dependency, keeping a job, insurance, intimacy, were all issues. So again, I think there's this desire to maintain a sense of normalcy in life and carry on as usual, and that's kind of where this swimming discussion keeps coming up for our consumers, if this is something that is going to be available to them. And one of the first things that we looked at was evidence-based practice. What's going on out there? What was the literature saying? And after doing a thorough review of the literature, it really revealed limited investigation of how much had been done regarding swimming with CVCs and increased risk of infection, because that's what we were really interested in looking at. There really was no consensus among the HPN programs or medical doctors on the practice to allow swimming or not. And again, we get consumers across the country, and some of them are part of medical teams with intestinal rehab programs. Some of them are with a local GI doctor or a primary care physician. So coming from all realms, it's really inconsistent whether, when they ask their physician if they can swim or not, if they're allowed to. So again, the only standard found out there really addressing anything related to this topic was Infusion Nurses Society, is that venous access device site care and dressing changes shall be performed at established intervals and immediately if the dressing integrity becomes compromised, if moisture, drainage, or blood is present, or if signs and symptoms of site infection are present. So when you're really looking out there for standards, there's really not much to go by when you look at that. So, and this was published from the 2011 INS standards. Now they were just updated recently, the beginning of this year, but what was interesting, they kind of changed the wording a little bit, but there really was no evidence that they found that really changed anything with this. So not, like I keep saying, there's really not much out there. So when it comes to the quality of life, what can we do? And for me as a nurse, listening to the consumer, what's important to them? Again, what is a quality of life issue for them? And if possible, we want to be able to give them options when it's available, give them choice, allow the consumer to participate in their care planning, provide resources and education, and really connect the consumer with peers and support groups. And as I found out with Oley, I wish I knew about this foundation in my younger nursing career, because I think it's really, I'm amazed by the support, and a lot of people have been coming for years, and really what you get from coming to this meeting. So really, really important. But when we looked at the survey methods, when we were looking at a result of the lack of the evidence-based recommendations in this area, that's when we designed the survey to identify attitudes and practices of our HPN consumers surrounding swimming with a central venous catheter. So even though for me as a nurse, most of my consumers, I'll be honest, I'm in the Midwest, we're out of Kansas City, we're a little bit more conservative, it seems like. So I've got to say, a lot of my consumers in that area were not really, their medical team really did not want them swimming. So that was something we wanted to kind of look at, is what was the practice going on. So when we did the electronic survey, it was really distributed randomly to the HPN community via social media. So again, especially, and I say younger generation, but I've got to admit I'm on social media more than I ever thought I would be, especially with this job. I didn't even used to be a texter or a Facebooker until a couple years ago, so it was a new learning curve for me. But we found out this was something and again, they didn't have to be one of our consumers to participate in the survey. It was put out there on social media, and what we really wanted to see is what was the practice going on with swimming? Was it being done? So we looked at basically 11 questions pertaining to the practice of swimming with a central venous catheter, and if they did, what were the specific practices of central line care after swimming? Because again, some of the programs that do, or medical teams that allow our consumers to swim with a central line, taking care of that line afterwards is really, really important. So we just wanted to see what the consensus was out there. So the goal of this survey was really to determine if there was a correlation that existed between swimming and the incidence of line infections and the practice awareness by the consumer's medical team. Because we know a lot of times medical team may do something, say something, and the consumer might be doing something different. So again, for us, we really wanted to look at what was the real practice going on out there. So when we looked at the results of this, we had 182 consumers with central venous lines that were surveyed, that responded back to us. And out of the 158, or 87%, reported that swimming was important to them. And out of the 101 out of that group, 55% reported actually swimming with a central venous catheter. So when you look at off to the side there, you can see that the majority of the ones that did go swimming, 71, it was in a pool, so it was a pool. 24 in ocean, so obviously they lived closer to the coast. Lake 5%, and all it was at 11%. So again, the pool was the most common one that we saw, that if they swam, that's where they would do that at. So then the next thing we looked at was the line care practice. So what were they doing if they did go swimming? So we asked them about that. So 62%, or 62 out of the 61% of the central venous catheter swimmers wore CVC protective covering while swimming. So 6 of the 62 wore wetsuits, and maybe it would have been better to put dry suits because there is a difference between those two, but actually in our survey I think it was wetsuits. So 6 of them wore the wetsuits. 36 or 36% reported not wearing any protective covering. So again, and that would probably a lot of times be the port patients because that's underneath the skin. So, and then 2 did not respond to the question. 61 or 60% of the CVC swimmers reported changing their dressing immediately after swimming. And I think most of the programs or medical teams that allow our consumers as part of their program to swim, that is kind of the standard out there, that that dressing needs to be immediately changed. And then 36 reported changing the dressing as needed, and 2 did not respond to the question. So this was kind of interesting, reporting CVC line infections after swimming, and you always have to take into account this is self-reporting by this consumer. So what was kind of interesting about this one is that you see the highest number, 93%, 0 CVC line infections were reported, 1 CVC line infection, 6%, and then 2 CVC line infections, 1%. So just to give you one of the questions that we really wanted to look at was that line infection. And then the other thing that we were curious to know was the medical team. Did your medical team know that you were swimming? Did you have their approval? So again, that's always a big issue for a lot of our consumers. So of the 62%, we had 32% that swimming was prohibited, and then 68% swimming was allowed. And then on the other side, 38%, the medical team was unaware. So again, they weren't aware that their consumer was swimming. So in conclusion, after doing that, swimming was really an important quality of life factor for consumers, and again, more so for some than others. And like I said, it's usually my younger adults that I get this question the most from, and our parents, because swimming for children, we know, is kind of a big issue. And consumer swimming practice varies by location, line care, and medical team notification. And we come back to the same thing, that we really need further research needed to explore CVC infections relative to swimming practice and to develop associated standards. Because I think Lori Rain was mentioning too, everything really is evidence-based, and that's what we base our standards on. And I don't think we have that out there to support that. So again, it's one of those kind of personal things, a personal choice, whether our consumers are doing that or not. So it definitely is a personal choice at this point, because there's really no support out there to say that there's evidence to put the standards out there. So that is everything. So thank you.
Thank you, Lloydette. We have a question back here.
Thank you for that talk. Did you study the correlation of the infections to the type of water that the respondent swam in?
The one thing that we looked at was we did ask them what kind of so the waters, we asked them again whether it was pool, ocean, lake, and if they swam in all of them. The only thing we didn't put on there was hot tub, because that's the big no-no out there, so we didn't even put that on there as a choice. But it was mainly the pool.
Yeah, the question was the infections.
Oh, the infections.
The infections, were they correlated at all to a type of water that they had swam in?
You know what? We did not. That was one thing on the thing that we didn't ask them, and we should have. We probably missed the boat on that one.
Can I just ask a question about
Sure.
the infections? What did you say about the timing of those infections? Is it immediately after swimming? Was it within 3 days? Was it within a month?
Yeah, we didn't give them a parameter on that. We just said after they swam. So
it's hard to know what
Yeah.
they were thinking when they
Right.
filled it out. We have somebody with a question.
I had a question about the microbiology, and that would be in those that had were identified to having a CRBSI, what were the organisms? Were they a waterborne organisms? Were they a skin pathogen, or what was the organism in those that were infected?
yeah, we just did this on social media, so we did not get that information to see. Like I said, the infection rate, we did not get that.
What did, when you're talking about the CVC cover when they're swimming, what were they using?
The examples were like AquaGuard, the Dry Pro, Seal and Press. So basically, that's what we gave as an examples. So
Don't those kind of leak, though? I mean,
yeah.
just, okay.
One other question about the pools. did you ask whether they were public pools or whether they were private pools? Because that might make a little difference.
Right, because that's really true, because I know I have some consumers that'll do it in the private pool because they check the chlorine and they know who's in the pool, so. But no, we did not.
Okay, we've got somebody.
Okay, would a PIC count as a CVC? Were these included?
We did ask PIC, we asked tunneled, and we asked portacath.
Okay, and so the other thing is, after the swimming, did they change the dressing?
Yeah, that was in there, 62% did, so, and then I think 30-some% did not.
That scares me.
Yeah, exactly.
Who has a microphone? Well, no, we
We need the mic. We need the mic because of the streaming.
I did let my daughter swim in all the lakes, the pools, and she didn't get infections. I did not do any kind of an occlusive dressing. I always did a dressing and cap change when she was done with the swimming. So the cap was always included in that change.
So I'm curious, did the doctor or the medical team, were they aware of that?
They were.
They were. And
They were.
did they sanction that, or did they?
He was okay with it. Because she's almost 22. So
Okay,
this
okay.
we're a little more old school, so we did things a little differently. I know rules have changed a lot over time, but that is how we did it.
I think it's important to say that you really need to look at the specific situation too. I'm just thinking of all the fungal stuff on the coast of Florida right now. I would not suggest anybody going into those waters, whether they have a central line or not.
Right, yeah, let alone, yeah.
Did you guys assess whether it was in a saltwater pool or a chlorine pool?
No, it was just a pool. And again,
Okay.
like I said, going back and doing this again, we'd be a lot more specific about some of the questions. So I think that's a good point. Where were they swimming, and yeah, who had access to it?
Okay, one more question.
It was basically just a comment. Out of 25 years of having a central line and swimming, I've only had one related infection, and that was after going to Sesame Place, and there was a slight delay of 45 minutes in getting my dressing changed, so I had a slight infection afterwards. But I did want to comment about people not doing a dressing change afterwards. I know I answered some questions in the survey, and I'm very good with using Tegaderm or IV3000, although Tegaderm works better to keep my site totally dry. I do a huge dressing over it, and so there's times where after swimming my dressing is completely dry, so a dressing change would not be needed afterwards. So that could be reasons why some people aren't doing dressing
Weren't
change.
doing it.
And
for
the same
port.
with the pick, with the cover that can go over the pick site, it can keep it totally dry.
Right.
Maybe any additional questions you can catch
We're doing
up
the
with
round
like
table.
that later. Oh,
Yes,
there's
the
a
round table. So.
Perfect.
Okay, grab
All
this.
right, and our third prize winner